Planting on hold as the cool, wet spring continues. Ahead on Grow, how wheat growers have been affected by the weather, plus cattlemen concerned about activists with drones. We'll tell you where. And we honor a farm family sharing their story so others can learn. Straight ahead on Grow. Hot, cold, rain, even snow. Nebraska farmers have seen it all this spring. It's definitely taken a toll, especially on wheat growers. NTV's Valerie Juarez has our top story.
Wasn't so much the snow, wasn't so much the moisture, it was the cold temperatures that came.
Nebraska farmers checking out their wheat after this weekend's snowfall.
It's not always an easy assessment because you may have parts of the fields that's affected but not others.
Local wheat farmer Darren Niemeyer says first hearing about the wintry conditions made him worry about his crops and animals.
You just worry about everything. I mean, there'll be too much snow on the wheat. It's going to break the stems. It's going to be too cold for the corn. And I raise cattle too, so then you worry about getting too cold and wet for the calves and they get sick.
Pat Whitney from the UNL Extension in Holdridge showed me how you can tell whether your wheat has been damaged.
If we start seeing brown or dead tissue, then that's a sign that we get concerned about, and that could cause some problems. Sometimes we'll have inner nodes that will get brown, or we could have browning right at the node, and that's not a good sign.
But he says although one crop may look okay, others may not.
When we have frost or freeze conditions, you'll have lower areas that'll be more impacted than other areas.
And while some people might think the moisture of the snow may be a good thing, it actually can be a headache.
If you get snow on top of it, you can see that it might have broke the stem somewhere. That damage is a little more visible.
But Darren says it's still a little too early to tell how much damage there really is. However, if you need to salvage the wheat, here's what he recommends.
You can put it up for hay. You can windrow it and bale it up for hay, or you can actually put a fence around it and graze some cattle on it.
And currently we sit about a third of the way through planting. The latest USDA crop progress report shows significant rain and snow has cut into the number of days suitable for field work, but the positive is improved moisture levels. Last year at this time, 25% of corn had been planted. This year we're at 34%, right around the 5-year average. Soybeans, 8% planted. Calving now 92% complete, with mostly average to light death loss. Some of that corn being planted, white corn, others enogen. Can the two coexist? That's the focus of our Twitter poll this week, and for those involved in white corn production, it seems many are very concerned about enogen. That's Syngenta's product with an enzyme that makes it best for use in ethanol. As always, follow us on Twitter to cast your votes. Last weekend's snowstorm left behind more damage than expected, especially in western Kansas. Brenda Carrasco tells us how one family is dealing with the loss.
Now, you have your good years and your bad years, and of course it's the bad years that stick with you.
In the aftermath of the weekend snowstorm, Kyler Miller-Shasky, a farmer and rancher in Kearney County, says he's just now coming to grips with how much damage it really caused.
I was actually pretty optimistic that we were going to make it through it okay, and then we get out here Monday morning and you just see all the dead calves. That really hit you deep.
Miller-Shasky says they did all they could to protect their livestock ahead of the storm by putting out extra feed and wind barriers. But when it finally hit, they realized its true strength.
I didn't even try getting out of the house because I knew there was no way I could get up here to help them. You feel so helpless at times just because you know your responsibility is to get up here and take care of these cows, and there's literally nothing you can do.
Now Miller-Shasky and his family are in the process of cleaning up after what they describe as some of the toughest days in their lives.
It's amazing how it's the little things that make you happy, but this afternoon when I pulled into the draw and you just see all the calves running around playing, enjoying the sun, it was a real uplifting moment.
Miller-Shasky says although this past weekend was full of loss, he says that most of all was a learning lesson.
My first couple years of farming, I've seen the very best I may ever see, and hopefully this is the very worst I'll ever see.
22 senators have voted against property tax relief. That's what Governor Pete Ricketts says after his tax package stalls in the legislature. The plan would have lowered income tax rates, adjusted the way farmland is valued, capped statewide property tax growth and expanded tax credits for low-income Nebraskans. Papillion Senator Jim Smith says he was extremely disappointed with the vote. Meanwhile, Nebraska Farm Bureau leaders say it's not too late to act on property taxes. Steve Nelson says the governor's bill would have given $1 in property tax cuts for every $10 in income tax reductions. Farm Bureau leaders were optimistic the bill would be amended and improved, but say that never materialized. In other unicameral news, the legislature has seemingly killed a bill that could mean a little less tax for you. The bill would allow Nebraska's NRDs to continue levying a temporary 3-cent property tax for every $100 of valuation, but it has stalled in the legislature, failing to overcome a filibuster. The levy only could have been used to implement groundwater management activities. Opponents say that conflicts with the legislature's efforts to lower property taxes. And the legislature restores funding for the Nebraska Brand Committee. Senator John Keane pushed to restore $100,000 during debate this week. Nebraska Cattlemen President Troy Stowalter says the dollars taken were producer dollars that exclusively fund the Brand Committee efforts. The Brand Committee, as you remember, has taken some hits following an audit that found a lot of problems, but leaders there say pulling funds would have made it impossible to continue making changes. And cattlemen warn activists may be flying drones over Nebraska. Nebraska cattlemen tell NTV that producers in south central Nebraska, especially the Clay County area, have seen drones overhead. It's not the first time. Similar reports came after that New York Times report about alleged animal abuse at the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center. Talking to our partners at KRVN, cattlemen tell ranchers to be alert.
We would urge them to cover those animals if before the rendering service comes and picks those up, and because we know producers follow the rules on the proper way to dispose of those animals. So if they could be aware of that and do themselves and the industry a favor, as they do every day in managing their herd health, to be aware of that possibility and how to properly handle that situation.
Independent cattlemen call on President Trump to restore country of origin labeling. RCAF says Cool ends the packers' ability to decide where they source cattle to satisfy domestic demand for beef. But the World Trade Organization has said country of origin labeling unfairly discriminates against Canada and Mexico. RCAF wants Cool reinstated and says it's in line with the president's directive to buy American. RCAF wants Canada and Mexico to withdraw their complaints and create market competition, allowing consumers to make decisions. So, do you support country of origin labeling? That's this week's poll question. Your choices: yes, it's good for consumers to buy American, or no, causes too many issues with trade partners. Or if you've got another opinion, feel free to share your thoughts on Facebook and Twitter. And dairy producers speak out about what they see as Canada's protectionist policies. A bipartisan group of 68 House members wrote a letter to President Trump urging him to insist Canada lives up to the rules set up under NAFTA. The Milk Producers Federation says Canada engages in a systematic abuse of trade rules to undercut American farmers. Approximately 15% of U.S. milk is exported. A major Nebraska ethanol producer is buying out Cargill's cattle feeding operations. Cargill is selling feed yards in Kansas and Colorado to the Omaha-based Green Plains. Green Plains, of course, operates ethanol plants in places like Central City, Wood River, York, and Ord. They already have 2 cattle feeding operations. The benefit to Green Plains is internal demand for distillers' grains, and Cargill says it allows them to focus on their beef processing plants. May is Beef Month, and in honor, a rancher from North Dakota recently traded places with a chef. Here's more from the American Angus Association.
23 miles are all that stand between the two bookends of the beef story in this case, but ranchers and chefs are on the same team. One's day usually ends when the other's is just getting started, so rarely do they meet. That is, until they trade places. It was a first for the chef. A chance to stand beside the cattle and see where they come from. This time, just down the road.
To come out and find out the care and the details in the beginning, coming to make a little more proud for the things you do. before even the steaks hit into our place, our store, to know how much all the things have to get through.
Not to mention the stories he can now tell customers.
We do a lot of different details, a lot of different things for our guests and our customers, and all the influence, all the things the information we have today come in and make us feel more proud what we do. And what I see today, that was the whole cycle of putting a really good steak in front of our guests, and that was a great thing to see it.
For his neighboring rancher, it meant an evening under the kitchen lights.
I mean, we put in long hours on the ranch, but these guys put in similar long hours here and take that same commitment to ensuring that it's a great eating experience for the consumer.
Passion is one of the many similarities the two share. Long hours and late nights, traditions and legacy, commitment and follow-through. These guys speak the same language. I'm Bob Cervera.
Kids make a connection between agriculture and science. From building tools to doing minimally invasive surgery to creating a name bracelet using computer coding, these families are getting a first-hand look of how science, technology, electronics, and math, STEM, can be used in the ag field as part of the Science Expo put on by Nebraska Extension.
If the experience that our youth are able to walk away with this is to have a positive experience with science, and that they realize that agriculture uses science, and that if they have an interest, that agriculture has a potential career that they could grow up in.
It was the first year for this expo at Raising Nebraska, which was held last week as part of the Nebraska Science Festival across the state. Up next, opportunities for middle school kids to learn more about biotech crops, and later, we honor a farm family sharing their egg story with others.